this fine morning?
I am awesome. Is it still morning?
It is indeed. Oh, and it is 11 o'clock. So in the registration process, we got several great questions that Donna has incorporated into her presentation. At the end of the session, we really would love to do a robust Q&A with you guys. I am Lisa Schwartz. Thank you very much for joining ITSM Academy's webinar this month with the one and only Donna Knapp, our Curriculum Development Manager. Just wanted to give a quick shout out. If we've got a couple of specials and things going on right now. So if you aren't following us on social media, Nina's gonna throw the link in for Twitter, LinkedIn, and the YouTube channel where we do post these past webinars. So with that, Donna, I am gonna turn it over to you and I will see you at the end for our Q&A.
All right. Hey, everybody. So first of all, I always like to answer like the frequently asked questions at the start of webinars. So is the webinar deck available? Yes, it's on the website. I actually provided it to Nina ahead of time yesterday, which she's not used to. Are we recording? And yes, we are. So the recording will be available shortly. Welcome to August. First of all, is anyone else out there in total denial that we're in August, first of all? Welcome to ITSM Academy. The topic this month is managing the flow of feedback. And I think this is a topic that it is interesting because we're talking a lot these days about things like customer experience and employee experience. And how do we understand what those experiences are? Well, we ask for feedback. So that's a big part of what we're going to be talking about today. So I actually want to start off this morning with a poll. So if you can play along with me, which of the methods are you currently using in your organization? And, you know, it shouldn't surprise you that somewhere along the line in the course of my travels, in our webinar this month, I'll talk about these different methods. And this is a choose all that apply. It's not, select only one of them along the way. So let me give it a few moments for you to answer the polling question, and then we'll proceed. And I'm going to take some notes. So it's very gratifying having authored a book called The ITSM Process Design Guide. It's gratifying that process mapping is in the lead right now, that we're seeing 85% of you are doing process mapping. It's awesome that we're seeing a lot of you doing value stream mapping. And again, we'll talk more about these things as we go along. So I'm going to take a couple of quick notes and then we'll go ahead and proceed. And y'all have met me. A lot of you have met me before. Well, some of you haven't met me. So it occurred to me, Lisa kind of didn't necessarily introduce me. I'm Donna Knapp. I'm the Curriculum Development Manager for ITSM Academy, which means I develop and maintain our course materials. I looked at, who's attending today, and a lot of you are good friends, and some of you are new to the Academy. So welcome to everybody. For those of you who do know me, I'm somewhat of a Deming fan, and so we'll actually talk about Deming as we go along. So I love that 13% of you acknowledge the Deming PDSA cycle. So here we go. So again, a lot of you are doing process mapping, which is awesome, right? Excellent. Real uptick in the number of organizations doing value stream mapping. We'll talk about customer journey mapping and blueprinting as we go along today. So interesting results. Thank you very much for participating. So again, welcome to ITSM Academy. We're a full service provider of ITSM education, and we very much believe in the value of integrating different ways of working like ITIL and DevOps and customer experience and process design and lean and site reliability engineering ways of working. And that's really my job here at the Academy. Sorry, I've got some kind of animation that is kicking in that I failed to take off. That's really my role at the Academy, is making sure that we kind of understand how all of these different ways of working fit together and enable us to provide value to our customers. And good golly, Miss Molly. So this is what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about, first of all, value to our customers, and more specifically, the value of leveraging feedback in order to maximize the value that we're delivering to our customers. We're going to talk about the feedback management process. We're going to talk about different mapping techniques, and then we're going to talk about using feedback in order to improve the quality of our products and our services and the experience that our customers receive from those products and services. So let's begin by talking about managing the flow of value. So we're talking a lot about value stream mapping these days. If you look at ITIL 4, for example, it's really, the framework has really been reshaped to look at things from the value stream perspective. And it's not to say that processes aren't important anymore, which was our focus in ITIL version 3, but it's to acknowledge that how we design and deliver and support our products and services at a macro level, in other words, across the functional areas of our organization, across the processes within our organization, maybe even across multiple organizations, for those of you who are dealing with third-party providers, is critical in order for us to deliver value to our customers, or to use our ITIL vocabulary, to co-create value with our customers. We also can look at things from the experience standpoint. So that's where customer journey comes into play. So customer journey really, by definition, is understanding the end-to-end customer experience in the context of touch points and interactions. And I'm going to talk about touch points and interactions more as we go along this morning. But customer journey is really about understanding that it's kind of the collective experience, perceptions that our customers have. It's not any one single interaction that's going to make or break your relationship with your customers. It's really kind of cumulatively how you make your customers feel in terms of not only your products and services, but in terms of how you as an organization approach interacting with your customers. So we want to be looking at both. And there, if you can think of them as two sides of a coin, right? Value stream mapping kind of looks at like, okay, from the internal perspective, how are we designing and developing and supporting our products and services? What are the internal processes that we have in place in order to do that? Customer journey flips the coin, right? It looks at things from the customer perspective. It looks at things from the outside in perspective and says, let's walk a mile in our customer's shoes. Let's really try to make sure that we understand what it looks like from our customer's perspective in when they're doing business with us, right? When they're using our products and services, or when they're just dealing with us as an organization. So we have to think about how we manage the flow of value. And then we have to think about how we manage the flow of feedback. So if you can think about managing the flow of value as from left to right in our organization, from demand for a product or service through to our customers realizing value, think about that left to right. We can then think about feedback as what happens from right to left, right? So what's that customer experience look like? Are our customers actually realizing value from our products and services? And again, here's where both value stream mapping and customer journey, our value streams and our customer journeys benefit from that feedback, because we now have the opportunity to understand what the customer's perspective is and how we can improve. Now, let's be real about this. Where, you all have spent the last couple of years talking about, hearing about the great resignation and how dissatisfied some employees are with the experiences that they're feeling working within organizations. So it's not just about the customer experience, it's also about understanding what the experience of our employees looks like when they're following all the processes that we put in place to design and develop and support our products and services, and the processes that we put in place in order to deliver those customer experiences and enable those customer experiences. Trust me, I spent a lot of years working with organizations to help them improve their service desks. There's nothing a service desk agent hates more than having a policy that stands in the way of their delivering a great experience to customers. So we have to think about, and we have to understand and listen to what our customers are having to say about those products and services and those experiences. So we have two methods that we can use in order to understand those two perspectives, the flow of value and the flow of feedback. Why should we care about feedback? That's really the premise of my presentation today, managing the flow of feedback. It can be used to improve everything, right? It's not just about improving our products and services. It's about improving experiences of our customers and of our employees, of the processes and the activities that we have in place to develop and deliver and support those products and services. And really, quite frankly, it really helps to shape organizational culture. Why are individuals resigning from organizations today? In a lot of cases, it's because they're working in a place that has a really toxic culture. They just don't want to work there. They don't look forward to coming to work. They can't, get joy out of the work that they do. And there's all kinds of policies that stand in the way of them being proud of the work that they do. So we have to understand that, and we have to be willing to listen to that. W. Edwards Deming, who's a widely recognized expert in quality management, once said that every system is perfectly designed to get the results it gets. And Deming uses the term system in a very broad sense. It's not just an IT system, but it could be the organizational structure that you have in place. It can be a process that you have in place within your organization. So think about his words. If you have designed a great system, right, the experience is going to be very, very positive. And there's going to be great satisfaction in using that system. But if you have dissatisfaction, you designed it that way. There's something you've done. There's policies you put in place. There's processes you put in place. There's something that you've done that has resulted in that dissatisfaction. So feedback is important because it helps us listen to and understand, right? What are those things that we're doing really well? And what are those things that we really need to improve? Whose feedback are we talking about? Anybody and everybody's feedback. We have to focus on our customers. If you look at it from a lean perspective, lean, one of the first principle of lean thinking is to focus on value and to recognize that value is from the perspective of your customers. Your organization exists in order to serve customers, whether you're a government agency, whether you're a for-profit organization, whether you're a not-for-profit organization, you exist to serve customers in some way, shape, or form. So we have to focus on value from that customer perspective. But from a sustainability standpoint, we also have to be thinking about all of the other stakeholders in our organization, the employees who come to work every day and work hard for your organization, the partners and suppliers that you interact with and that you are that are part of your greater ecosystem, your shareholders of your organization, the stakeholders of your organization. And it's really important that to recognize that on any given day, those perspectives can conflict with each other. So a really simple example, and sustainability is a topic we're talking a lot about these days. Think about it just, if nothing else, from the shareholders of your organization and the stakeholders of your organization. The shareholders of your organization, what do they care about? Is the company being profitable? What does the, how's it looking on the in the stock market these days? That can very much conflict with stakeholders in your organization who are wanting you to focus on things like environmentalism and social responsibility and doing things that are going to benefit the organization in the long run and that are going to benefit future generations, as opposed to, what's it looking like? How profitable are we today, right? And what's the stock exchange looking like today? What's the ticker price on the stock exchange today? So we have to understand all of these perspectives. And there's a lot of different ways, and you can see them here, that we can gain these perspectives. Historically, the way we got feedback from any of our stakeholders was really to do customer satisfaction surveys. It was kind of traditionally the way we did things. But we really have to understand that the technology is out there today that lets us gain that perspective from a lot of additional sources. Just social media, just recognizing the fact that they might not be telling you how you're doing. They might not be filling out your 20-question customer satisfaction survey, but they're out on social media telling people, don't do business with this organization, right? So we have to understand that. We have to understand that we live in a day and age where people post Google reviews and, people are using other mechanisms than directly interacting with you as an organization in order to provide feedback. So we have to understand, right, what all of those mechanisms are. We also have to look for those opportunities to directly engage with our customers. And that might be by establishing focus groups, or by having community forums, or establishing communities of practice for our internal employees, to provide mechanisms that enable that engagement. Herein lies the challenge of surveys. Surveys give you answers to the questions you ask, right? So if you're not good at crafting surveys, you're going to get what you get, right? You're going to, if you have leading type questions in your surveys, right, you're going to get answers to those specific questions. What forums and focus groups do is enable you to not only ask questions, but to ask follow-up questions, to provide those opportunities to provide you feedback that is outside of what you're directly asking your customers or your employees about. So today, we have to be looking at kind of any and all methods we can in order to understand that customer feedback. So what is feedback management? What does the process look like? So it's actually a very simple process that enables us to take that feedback and then use it to make decisions that enable the long-term sustainability of our organization. So 4 steps, and we're going to go through these 4 steps: ask, analyze, act, and follow up. So let's talk about the feedback management process. But first, where do we begin? We can begin with customer journey maps. And, it was interesting when we looked at kind of who was doing what. we saw that 31% of you were doing customer journey mapping. So wasn't the smallest percentage, but we weren't seeing a lot of you producing customer journey maps. So what are customer journey maps? They really let us understand the end-to-end experience of our customers through touch points and interactions. And again, I'll talk about touch points and interactions coming up shortly in a moment. But what we do is we lay out at a very macro level, and it's customer journey mapping is similar to value stream mapping from the perspective that we try to sit at a macro level and really look at what are those high level activities. So you can see an example here of a customer journey from IDLE 4 drive stakeholder value that begins with explore. In other words, we don't even know about each other yet. I'm a customer, I have a need, you're a company, you have a product. How then do we kind of get together and navigate through, in the end, me as the customer realizing value for our customers? And we think about this in terms of each individual persona or categorically the perspective of the different customers that we're interacting with as a part of that customer journey. And we think about it from an experience standpoint, right? What does it look like? How does it feel? Experience is really about how does it feel to do business with this organization, to use the organization's products and services, and to actually interact with the organization. So where do we begin with feedback management? A logical place to begin is with our customer journey. So the first step in the feedback management process is to ask. So ask for the feedback. Well, a logical question to ask is, where do we ask for that feedback along the way? Here's where those touch points and interactions come into play. Touch points really, by definition, are those places where customers come in contact with you in your organization, but it might not be direct contact. So think about it. If you're thinking about buying a new product or service, where's one of the first places you go? I personally go to Amazon.com and I look at reviews. Sound familiar? I'm not actually dealing directly with that company. I'm looking at what people have to say about that company on Amazon.com, right? So that's an example of a touch point. I'm being exposed to a perspective about that organization without coming in direct contact with that organization. So service interaction then says there is in fact direct contact. It's me then going out and saying, hey, I want to download your ebook, or I want to download your demo product, or I want to gain access to your internet service, right? There's actually an interaction that's occurring. I'm directly interacting with that particular organization. So when we think about how do we ask for feedback, we want to ask for feedback on those touch points that can provide us data. Think about Amazon.com. Have you ever gone out to Amazon.com? And I'm always very fascinated by those situations where I see a customer blasting a product or service and the company isn't anywhere to be found, versus I see a negative review and I see the company coming in and saying, hey, we're really sorry, right, that you had this experience with a product or service. Please reach out to us. We really want to talk to you about the experience that you had, right? So what are those touch points that can provide us data about how our customers feel about our products, our services, or the experience they're having dealing with us as an organization? What are those kind of high value touch points that really represent the moment of truth in our organizations? Some of you out there probably work in a service desk and really all day long, right? What you do represents a moment of truth, right? I think people working in service desks are very special people because you can make or break a situation. And the best service desk agents understand this, and they thrive. They love taking a customer who is disgruntled and angry and turning them into someone who's out there bragging about the service that they received from an organization, right? So let's understand moments of truth. Let's understand high volume interactions, those places where a customer, based on how you interact with them, is going to decide, are they actually going to use your product or service or not? Are they going to continue to do business with your organization or not, right? Let's make sure that we're looking at, from the customer journey perspective, those places where we can capture data and understand how customers are feeling, right? Now, technology really helps us today. Again, we don't have to rely on surveys. How many times have you gone out to an organization's website and you've been asked to provide, some feedback on the, experience that you had using that website? Or you've gone out to a knowledge base and you've been asked, hey, did this help you to solve your situation? Give us a thumbs up, give us a thumbs down, give us a smiley face, help us understand how we're doing. So the technology is there today to enable us in our organizations to understand what that experience looks like, or let me say that differently, to collect that feedback without necessarily having to do a survey in order to ask, right? There's all these little ways that we can collect that feedback from our customers. Omnichannel support is important here. What omnichannel support says is, given all of the different channels that you use to interact with your customers, let's make sure that we've integrated them. Let's make sure that at any point along the way in the customer journey, we're collecting that data optimally into a centralized location so that anybody that interacts with that customer can see what that customer has been through trying to do business with our organization. It's the difference between somebody going out to our website and not being able to find an answer to our question, and then coming into the organization, maybe calling in or chatting in and having to start all over again, right? Because we don't really understand, right, what they've already tried, what information they've tried to collect, right? By going to our website and really understanding from the minute they hit our website through to when they contact us, what they've looked at, what answers they've tried to get, what questions they've tried to get answers to, how successful, because they've given us thumbs up or thumbs down, how successful they've been in trying to get that information. We know all of that coming into our interaction. We know all that coming into a service interaction. Think about it from the support perspective as well. How many times have you been phenomenally frustrated as a customer because you talk to a frontline service provider, you explain everything that you've gone through and everything that you've tried, and they say, I can't help you, but let me get you to second tier support. And when you get to second tier support, you have to start all over again, right? They don't have all of that data. They don't have all that information that you've already provided. Omnichannel support aims to solve that problem. So our first step is ask, but let's stop right here and be very, very clear. Do not ask if. Don't ask if you're not willing to change. Don't ask if you're not willing to improve your product, if you're not willing to improve your processes, if you're not willing to train your employees. The best way to damage a relationship with your customers or with your employees or with your stakeholders or your shareholders is to ask them for their feedback and then completely ignore that feedback, right? To not be willing to actually address that particular feedback. You do way more harm than good by asking and not acting than you actually do if you never ask to begin with. And think about it. I would think all of you have been through that experience. And some of you who know me, you've probably heard me tell this story before. I actually will respond to surveys, right? Because I understand the importance of customer service and I understand the importance of feedback. And I've had situations where they've asked me, would you like us to contact you about your feedback? And I'll always say yes, because I'm always kind of curious to see, right, how responsive they're going to be. So I fill in my email address and I say, please, or fill in my phone number, please feel free to contact me. It disturbs me how rarely organizations actually reach out to me and say, thanks so much for your feedback, and can we talk more about it? And it particularly disturbs me when I've been really disgruntled, because I'm kind of like most consumers. Very often I give feedback when they've done really great or they've done really poorly. If they were kind of okay, on any given day, I might not waste my time giving feedback. If they've done a really poor job and I've taken the time to give them some very specific feedback about how I think they can do better, and they don't bother reaching out to me, despite the fact that they said, hey, give us your phone number or your email, we'd like to talk to you more, it tells me something, right? It tells me something about that organization. So before we go any further in the feedback management process, let's understand the first step is to ask, but don't ask if you're not willing to change. And you can see here, there was a little survey done by Microsoft. 58% of consumers don't think their feedback goes to people who can do something about it. Like why do we not respond to surveys? Why do we not click that little smiley face or click that thumbs up or thumbs down? Because we don't think there's anybody on the other end of it that's actually going to do something about it. We think it's kind of a waste of time. So you have to understand that the way that you change that perception is by actually then following through on that feedback. So the second step is to analyze. So what omnichannel support does is help us bring all of our feedback into some type of a centralized system, so that again, we don't have, the sales department having one conversation with our customers, the support department having another conversation with our customers, the technical support professionals having another conversation. We're collecting all of that information and we're now able to analyze it and integrate it in some type of a system. And then having that ability to categorize it. And I've given you some examples of what those categories might look like over on the right-hand side. This is where you have to come up with the common language in your organization in terms of how you're going to categorize feedback and how you're going to then be able to share that feedback with the folks who can actually do something about it. Now, here's the great news. This is where artificial intelligence and machine learning really start to come into play. Computers can analyze all this data really effectively, right? So part of the reason why we used to be very enamored with surveys is because we could ask very specific questions. We could anticipate what the feedback was going to look like. We could produce nice little pie charts. I always refer to it as executive porn, right? We could produce nice little charts that kind of show categorically how people answer to their survey questions. And we kind of resisted having open-ended questions. What can we do better? How can we improve? Because then we had to manually figure out how to categorize that all that stuff. Artificial intelligence, machine learning can do all that for us, right? So the technology is there today to take all this data and to interpret it in a meaningful way. Sentiment analysis, right, we're in early days with sentiment analysis, but it's possible. So understand that here's where technology really can help. So let's take all this data, put it into a centralized system, leverage technology in order to categorize it, and then share it. Get it to the people that can actually do something with that data. I'm always fascinated by organizations who the developers or the technical support professionals, maybe the product-oriented teams, don't really have a good relationship with the service desk in their organization. And it fascinates me because what they don't understand is that the service desk is the most customer-facing part of any organization. They have the finger on the pulse of what your customers are saying about your products and services. So how do you make sure, if you're a development team, how do you make sure that you're actually listening to your customers? You take all the data that's coming in through your service desk and you analyze it and you figure out how to take action on that particular feedback. So we have to, again, kind of collect it, get it to the people that actually will understand the feedback and can then figure out what the right action is to take. Sometimes I think we have, customer success organizations, and we have, parts of our organization that analyze this data, and they might think, well, this doesn't really matter, or there's nothing we can really do about this. But if we get it to the product teams, or we get it to the technical teams who are actually responsible for the work, they may think, this is easy. We can solve this problem really easily. And here are a couple of ways we can do that. I also recognize certainly that there's always going to be that one disgruntled customer who's ridiculously vocal, and maybe we don't take action on that feedback, but we keep an eye on the trend, right? Is it just that one customer, or is it many customers who are providing that same feedback? We maybe just haven't been willing to listen to those customers, or we haven't been collecting the data that enables us to understand that actually a lot of our customers feel that way, or a lot of our employees feel that way. Step 3 then is to act. And here's where we then prioritize all that feedback that we got. And we have to think about this now in the context of our greater strategies of our organization, maybe the goals that we've set for our organization. Think back to those categories. If our goal is to speed up the flow of value, then let's look at those things that relate to speed. If our goal is to improve the quality of our products and services, then look at those things that relate to quality, right? So what are the goals of your organization? And also think about it in the context of experience always. So what are the experience level agreements that we have in place that we're looking to establish in order to shape how people feel about our products and our services and our organization? And then we formulate an improvement plan and we act on that plan. Now, if you've ever heard me talk about Deming, I talk about the fact that Deming is widely recognized for the plan, do, check, act cycle. Deming actually preferred plan, do, study, act. So why did Deming like to use the term study as opposed to check? The term check kind of introduces a checklist mentality, right? So we put in place an improvement plan and it says, let's do these 5 things. And then we check, we did all those 5 things. Okay, we're done. Were those 5 things successful? Were those the 5 right things? Did those 5 things produce the results that we expected them to produce? What Deming actually preferred is plan, do, study, act. And the study idea is recognition that it takes time to move the dial. And I could do a whole presentation, and I have done whole entire presentations on leading and lagging indicators, but understand the concepts like customer experience and customer satisfaction, it takes time to shift those perspectives. So we have to be willing to study the results of the actions that we're taking and understand, did they in fact produce the desired results, right? Did the actions that we take increase satisfaction, or did they make things worse, right? Because we missed the mark in terms of what our customers were saying or in terms of what our employees were saying. And that's where the act step in the Deming cycle comes into play, right? Act then on those results. So when we talk about act in terms of feedback management, there's a couple of places in which we take action, right? We take action in terms of the improvements that we think are going to enable us to respond to that feedback, but we have to then study, right, the results of those actions and then act on those results. And really, this is where we see the difference between the highest performing organizations and low performing organizations. The highest performing organizations have that commitment to continual improvement. They don't just take action. They don't just like plan and do, right, and then move on to the next great thing, right? They actually study the results and they act on the results. Here's where we can flip the coin, right? So we talked about value stream mapping and customer journey mapping being two sides of a coin. Well, customer journey maps actually have a flip side as well. And it's in a technique known as service blueprinting. And when we looked at service blueprinting, when I did my little survey in the beginning, only 8% of you said you were using service blueprinting. So let's talk about that. What Service Blueprint does is take the customer journey and then drill down and look at what are the activities that are occurring within the organization, what are the processes that we're following within our organization that are translating into that customer journey. Here's where you can find your improvement opportunities. So let's look at those touch points and interactions. Let's understand where customers are maybe having negative experiences, and then let's drill down and understand what processes have we put in place, maybe what policies have we put in place within our organizations that are translating into that customer experience. Trust me, if you have a service desk that has a policy that says something like, if the service desk can't solve an incident within 5 minutes, they have to escalate it to tier 2. Believe me, you're going to have a negative customer experience because it takes more than 5 minutes a lot of times today to describe the incident. And you're going to also have dissatisfied tier 2 and tier 3 representatives because 5 minutes is not enough time to really investigate what's happening with that incident and try to use known and proven techniques in order to solve that incident. So a lot of times we put in place these policies that are kind of doomed to fail within our organization, but we don't understand that because we don't walk a mile in our customer's shoes, right? We don't know what that customer experience looks like. So what service blueprinting does is say, let's make sure we understand what are the things that we're doing that are causing that customer experience. And here's where techniques like process mapping can now start to come into play, right? Looking at where there's waste in our processes, look at where at places where the policies that we've defined for our processes are inappropriate for our customers. And at the end of the day, let's connect the dots. Let's make sure, and I'm not going to walk through this entire diagram. You have it, you have the slides, you can take a look at it, but let's really understand this. Happy customers translating, or let me step back. Happy employees translate into happy customers, right? So let's make sure we understand what the work environment looks like for our employees, the policies and the processes that we have in place, and what they translate into from a customer or from an employee experience standpoint, and then what that looks like from a customer perspective. It's also really important to recognize and to understand that today, customer satisfaction really doesn't buy you anything, right? On any given day, we can make our customers happy for that moment. The question is, over time, are we ensuring customer satisfaction? Over all of the experiences that they have with our organization, over all of the experiences that they have using our products and services, are they in fact satisfied? That over time, right, is what's going to enable customer loyalty. It's what's going to enable our customers to defend our organization, to refer our organization to their friends, their family members. It's going to make them be willing to give us a break when we fall down, because the reality is every organization is going to fall down on any given day. Some days we're just not going to do a good job for our customers. But what we want our customers to say is, wow, right? That's not like them, right? That's unusual. Usually I have a great experience when I'm dealing with this particular organization, or usually I love their products and services. This is a little bit of an anomaly. Let me give them a second chance. We also have to recognize the fact that we need to both act on and respond to positive and negative feedback. We all love positive feedback. It's awesome. It lets us all feel good about our products and services and the job that we're doing on any given day, and we need to celebrate it, right? So when we get positive feedback, we need to pass that positive feedback along to the people that actually contributed to the work that produced that positive feedback. And this is a, important message for leadership, right? In terms of how we pass along feedback and how we make sure that feedback gets acknowledged. We also have to recognize, and I think perhaps most importantly, we have to understand the value of negative feedback. That when people take the time and effort to let us know that we've fallen down on the job, we need to thank them for that. And we need to think, all right, first of all, in this moment, right, can we make it right with this particular customer? Is there something we can do to improve the situation with this particular customer? But in the greater sense, how can we translate this customer's experience into experiences that other customers may be having, but they're just not telling us about it, right? We have, and I'm not going to share her name. Some of you are probably going to know who she is. We have a trainer who's, the beauty of this particular trainer to our organization is she always passes along feedback to us. And she will pass along feedback that we know, like once we understand this feedback, we know definitively other trainers are experiencing the same thing, but they've not had the time, or they've not, taken the time to pass that feedback along to us. So we have to appreciate, right, those customers and those partners with our organization who take the time to pass along that feedback so that we can act on it. And again, not just act on it from the standpoint of this one particular interaction, right? Can we make it right in this one particular situation? But can we apply this in a broader sense, right? The last step, step 4 in our feedback management process is to follow up, right? So we ask, we analyze, we act, and then we have to follow up. And here's where it's so important to recognize that feedback is a two-way street. There needs to be engagement. So community forums for our customers, right? Letting our customers actually participate in shaping what our products and services look like, perhaps voting on what are the new features or what's the new functionality that we provide in our products and services, and using communities of practice internally to let our employees look at our processes and how we can improve our value streams, how we can improve the experiences of not only our employees, but of our customers as well. They imply two-way engagement, and they help us to understand the importance of actually being transparent about what we can do, what we maybe can't do in order to improve, but at least having a conversation about the feedback that we're getting and how we can leverage that feedback. So why is this feedback important? Look at the proof, right? Look at all of the ways in which your organization can benefit from leveraging feedback in terms of increasing things like satisfaction and loyalty and decision-making and performance and productivity. And in terms of decreasing things like customer churn and employee turnover. So we have to recognize the fact that today our customers can choose to go take their business elsewhere, and our employees can as well. They can take their talent elsewhere. And I think decreasing apathy is an important part of this conversation because, and I can't remember like the exact quote, but it was something to the effect of like, which would you rather have? The dissatisfied customer or let me take a step back. Which would you rather have? The dissatisfied employee who chooses to leave your organization or the dissatisfied employee who chooses to stay, right? So if you have a disgruntled employee who's kind of working in your organization, they're not happy, they're negative, they're spreading that negativity to their coworkers, or they're just not caring in general about the quality of their work product. Do you really want that person working for your organization? So we kind of have to think about, right, that engagement and making sure that the people who are working in our organizations want to work in our organizations and they want to contribute. And we're perhaps more importantly, creating the environment that helps them to do that. We also can use techniques like value stream mapping and customer journey mapping to really help us to eliminate the waste, to ensure that kind of fast flow of value, to look at the defects that are occurring in our products and services, and figuring out how to improve the flow of that value to our customers. So feedback is invaluable because it enables us to continually improve. It enables us to learn. And really, from a sustainability standpoint today, that's what's going to let you stay in business for the long haul. That ability, right, to continually improve and to learn. It's what separates the high-performing organizations for the low-performing organizations. And I want to make one last point here, and that is to not be afraid along the way to experiment with different ways of working. You know, today, there's proven techniques like A/B testing, like design thinking, that really can help us understand and look at, are the improvements that we're making in response to feedback working, right? And or which approach can we take that's going to best produce the positive result? That's really what A/B testing is about, right? There's a couple of ways we can approach this, right? Which way do you as a customer prefer, or which way do you as an employee prefer? Design thinking is very much about formulating a hypothesis. We think this will improve customer satisfaction, or we think this will reduce employee turnover, but does it in fact, right, produce that desired result? So remember our Deming cycle: plan, do, study, right? And then act based on those results. Last thing I want to say is, if you've been kind of following along with me, you might have had a little fleeting thought as I went along that, like, hey, she's talking about the 3 ways of DevOps, right? And you're right, like if you had that fleeting thought. So what are the 3 ways of DevOps for any of you who are unfamiliar? The first way of DevOps is managing the flow of value from left to right. And it's really about systems thinking, right? It's about thinking holistically about how you design and develop and support the products and services in your organization to enable value for your customers. The second way of DevOps is about feedback. It's about ensuring fast feedback from right to left. Well, how do we ensure fast feedback? Here's where things like agile development methods and lean development methods can really come into play to make sure that we understand that by making small, frequent changes, we can get fast feedback. And the faster we get feedback, the faster we can then study the results and act on those results. third way of DevOps is to foster a culture of experimentation and learning, and understanding that today the reality is that we've got what, 5 generations of employees in the workforce. We've got a lot of different perspectives on what value looks like, on what a positive experience looks like. So we've got to constantly be experimenting and learning what's important to our customers or what's important to our employees. And then last, the third way of DevOps focuses on understanding that with mastery, right, we're able to continually improve. So all these techniques that we've been talking about, value stream mapping, customer journey mapping, service blueprinting, process mapping, all support continual improvement and can all be leveraged as a part of the feedback management process. So having said that, let me do my last or my second poll. Okay. So some of the things that we've talked about along the way kind of speak to the feedback management process and perhaps some of the things that are standing in the way of you being successful managing feedback in your organization. So as you complete our second survey, Lisa, are there any questions that we have along the way?
There is, Donna. We have actually only one so far, which might be a good thing because you had a lot to say there, Fred. And I really, really enjoyed it, Donna. And it was so funny to me because it feels like it's been a really long time since it was the first view of a webinar for me. And I was thinking to myself, why did I not see this at conference? Because I got COVID. That's right.
Yeah, that's right.
Thanks for that memory.
I know, I did. Yeah.
Exactly. So Keith is asking a great question. How would you characterize systems thinking and design thinking against value streams and customer journeys? Example, a natural connection between design thinking and customer journey.
So I'll take them one at a time. I think of value streams and customer journey as two sides of a coin, right? So value stream is really about how we design and develop and support our products and services. So it's almost internally, what are the activities that we have in place in order to kind of then, you know, produce and deliver our products and services. Flip that coin, customer journey mapping says from the outside in, right? What's the customer's perspective on this? So how is the customer interacting with our products and services? How is the customer interacting with our, what's the customer experience, right? In terms of dealing with our organization. So I see those as like two little perfect sides of a coin, one being the inside out perspective, one being the outside in perspective. What design thinking does is really kind of challenge organizations to think about the customer perspective, but to kind of challenge how we satisfy, right, our customers. So and a big part of design thinking is about experimentation. So putting forth a hypothesis, we think, right, we think we understand our customer needs, right? And in order to satisfy those customer needs, here's what we think we can do. Either we can add this feature to our product, or we can, you know, put in place this procedure to provide a certain experience, right? We put forth a hypothesis, and then we test that hypothesis. So a big part of design thinking is that experimentation and learning aspect of things. So they're kind of like a nice little trilogy, right? Because what value stream does is give us that left to right flow of value. What customer journey mapping does is help us to understand where are those places that we can get feedback and understand experiences. And then what design thinking does is say, let's experiment and learn our way to improving both of those. So that's my that's my take on those three perspectives. And Keith, I'm looking forward to hearing what you had to say offline about whether you agree or disagree with me on that.
Well, and Donna, we just hit the top of the hour. So I think we're gonna, if anyone else does have a question, feel free to shoot it in. I know that Donna will hang out for a few more. But for those of you that have to leave, thank you very much for joining us today. I hope you took as much from this as I did. And next month's webinar, we're working on a couple of different things. We've got a couple of practitioners that we're getting lined up, which is always our favorite. And we're also looking at doing one on simulations. So don't have anything locked in yet for next month, but we will, and we'll get it out to you guys. So thanks again for joining us. And we hope you enjoyed it. Thanks, Donna.